Arcane's perfect episode draws a distinct line between two very unique characters, two heroes, with contrasting ideologies and backgrounds, instead of making them argue or fight to resolve their differences, which were actually highlighted in the third episode of this season. Episode 7 does something a lot more cunning. It lets the fruit of their different approaches to life play out in alternate timelines, giving each character what most of the audience base would agree is their deserved reality, considering their actions. While Ekko gets a second chance of life with everyone he loved and lost, Jayce has to swallow a bitter pill that tastes exactly like the aftermath of his own actions. All that's left of Piltover is a barren wasteland, a horror show, a cold, isolated world created by Victor and Jayce's ambitions. Earlier in the series, you may notice Jayce look in a mirror. Mirrors are often used in Arcane to reflect the mental state of a character to the audience. For example, Vi and Jinx both have scenes with broken mirrors, implying that their mental states at those moments are not solid. Jayce, however, does not have a broken mirror. His is perfectly fine because he doesn't truly ever face adversity until he gets a look into this world. One more thing about the scene with the mirrors is notice how Jayce's mirror is in the background. His political affairs are obviously important to him, but by placing this mirror so far in the background, it shows how little his Man of Progress title is to everyone else and how little it does for the series. There are more pressing issues than Jayce being some sort of celebrity or politician. This apocalyptic world ends up being the mirror that Jayce needed. It reflects all of his actions back to him. It forces him to introspect and look back on his decisions, which I'm sure we all realize were not optimal. Ekko is also forced to reflect, but in a very different way. You see, he had already given up on any sort of vision for Zorn. His circumstances convinced him that nothing could change. Seeing Zorn's improvement and everyone he loves doing well wakes him up to the fact that his reality also still has a chance.
I used to dream the Undercity could be like this, but somewhere I got consumed by all the ways it wasn't.
This world gives him an opportunity to let go of his anger and process his emotions in a healthy setting. What this episode does well is that it acts like an anchor for the rest of the series, the rest of Arcane, while also stepping away from everything that makes Arcane. The huge tonal shifts in these two worlds shows us how controlled all of the other aspects of the series have been so far. We learn that the dark feel that the series gives off is highly intentional, because this episode shows how easily they could have gone the other way with the series by simply adding scenes that are more vibrant and well lit. The very first episode of Arcane was a great example of this. It gave us a precursor to this dark series with shades of Pixar sprinkled in. That Pixar Disney feel to Ekko's half of the story was very, very important. It gives us a chance to breathe. Arcane gets extremely depressing after some time because of how the likable characters get tossed and turned by the situations that the story presents. There are so many close moments and things that could have been completely different if it weren't for small mistakes. This hurts us as the audience base. That's what episode 7 puts under the spotlight really well. It gives us these what if scenarios, and it shows how well or how bad things could have been. It also sits as a huge callback to the first episode 7 that we see in season 1, where Ekko again was the main focus of the episode. In fact, there's this short clip talking about how Ekko would have had an even bigger role in this episode. However, the team at Fortige decided to can it because they felt that the fight scene was enough to complete this bridge of storytelling.
Episode 7 used to open with a scene that showed you exactly what happened in Ekko and Jinx's past when they were kids. We crafted this sequence of how Ekko sort of started the Firelights. So in the wake of Vander's death, Silco took over the lanes, there was a lot more orphans, and he sort of collected the orphans, took them under his wing, and gave them a safe haven. But he was always looking for a way to get closer to Silco because he thought that Silco was keeping Powder prisoner. He finally, after all this work, finds Powder in Silco's lair and he says, "I'm here to rescue you." And she says, I don't want to be rescued. I'm Jinx now. And then when he tries to pull her out of there physically, she slapped him the same way that Vi slapped her in episode 3. And it was such an emotional scene, and we loved it so much. But what we realized is seeing that scene at the beginning of the episode didn't set up their fight at the end. It was the fight at the end of the episode. So by layering in some of those hints of the moment of the childhood in their fight at the end of the episode, you could get the whole story I just told you, you would feel it in that fight scene.
Back to episode 7, Jayce's isolation in this new world becomes a lot more obvious when you can see Piltover buzzing in Ekko's world. But when you really think about it, this is who Jayce is. He has about 3 people he can go to in his life in the entire series. One is now a cult leader, the other manipulated him for financial and political gain, and the other one is his mom. It's not even that I believe he needs anything more than that. Those 3 people are core, and those are the type of people we need in our lives. However, it's easy to see why his decisions were so removed from the people on the ground. He doesn't talk to them. He doesn't spend his time in the lanes or the fissures. This detachment from the true reality in the lanes and the problems that these people face is why he creates tools like the Hexclaw and the Atlas Gauntlets to help the miners in the fissures work. But he doesn't even think about building something to improve their breathing situations. Instead, he builds this huge hex gate, and he builds the failsafe for that hex gate in the lanes, very far away from the rich people in Piltover. What's interesting about him failing to build an application that would clean the air in the mines is that Clagor builds that exact device in this episode, showing that the writers did think through that this was a needed device. Just Jayce doesn't build it because he doesn't understand it's needed. This isolation that Jayce experiences throughout the series further highlights why Ekko is special, because Ekko thinks about community. And that's the reason why in this episode he has one. He has people he loves to communicate with. We primarily see Jayce think about his Hextech dream and think about cures for Victor's condition. And that's why in his alternate reality, he gets stuck with both of those aspects. This episode manages to poetically highlight the differences between the two's thinking. Now, the part that a lot of you have been waiting for, and the best part of episode 7, has nothing to do with the Jayce and Ekko dynamic, but happens to be the expansion of Jinx and Ekko's relationship. Less out of necessity for any relationships in Arcane. I don't feel that they help the story that much, but more because of the fact that the writers were hinting towards Jinx and Ekko's relationship for some time. And how it's done is very clever because it allows them to keep both characters intact in the main reality of Arcane while grouping them together in this alternate reality. An important characteristic of Powder's personality also gets opened up in this episode, that being that she always ends up helping the people closest to her. When Vi was crashing out doing break-ins, she wanted to be there helping Vi. She wanted to fight like Vi. When Soko took her in, she was willing to commit murder and war crimes to please him. When it was Isha, she turned into this big sister figure who was not only raising Isha, but would also act as a play partner for the child. With Ekko, in episode 7, we see the same pattern play out. She helps him with his submission into the contest, and she plays the role of a lab assistant, a very intelligent lab assistant at that. Almost a Hextech partner like Victor and Jayce. This all proves that her wanting to help the people around her is a core part of her personality. She wants to feel included in their lives in a very practical way. Just in this reality, it ends up being very healthy for her to do this because Ekko is actually a decent person to help out. He also leans really well into Powder's strong point as a young, genius, innovative mind. The heartbreaking part about episode 7 of season 2 of Arcane is that Ekko decides to sacrifice paradise to return to his own problematic reality to save everyone. This selfless act not only makes him a hero, but also hurts us as the audience because we can all see what this fixed world meant to him. The powerful part about this episode is that a matured Jayce returns to do the same thing that Ekko is doing. He wants to be a hero, albeit in a very different way to Ekko. We have these two heroes set out to fix their world and their reality after spending time in an alternate reality that somewhat changes their perspective on life. These two characters juxtapose each other in terms of everything they stand for and everything they believe in, but there's one thing that unites them and makes them functionally one hero. Both of them want the defense and the prosperity of their respective halves of Piltover and Zaun, and they do it in the best way that they both know how to do it. This episode then ends with the heart-wrenching promise Ekko made to never forget his moments with Powder, captured in a flower pendant that he gifted her. If you look at it closely, the floral pattern on the pendant has both of their faces engraved onto it. And we can also see what is the most dark and gloomy parts of Ekko's half of this episode. That being that Powder still has those Hextech crystals in her possession. This is a warning to the audience, a reminder that this world can also go to shit very quickly. And that puts the end to a masterpiece of an episode that focused on the characterization of these characters and giving more depth to the world in general. I actually have another video that acts like a part 1 or a part 2 of this video, and it goes into all of the amazing hidden details that you might have missed in episode 7 of Arcane. And you can check this video out right here on screen. This is Loy signing off. Peace.